Today I'm going to be Cerakoting this LSJ valve cover for my DF Goblin back there, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how I'm going to do it. Now before we get started, I do want to say that I'm not necessarily a Cerakote expert. This is not a video by Cerakote, this is just me in my garage Cerakoting this piece. I've Cerakoted a few pieces before, but by no means am I an expert. So if you have experience with Cerakote, I'm always looking for tips and tricks on how I can get better. There are a few different ways to do Cerakote. As you can see, I've got a sandblaster back there. Typically what you would do is you would sandblast the parts. I'm going to be hand prepping this piece just because there are some baffles in there that I do not want to have to remove, and I do not want sand getting inside a piece that is going to house oil that runs through the engine. So we're going to be hand prepping this piece. I'm going to show you guys how to do it and probably the best way to do it in my opinion. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into it. First things first, we have to prep the part. As you can see, this part looks pretty dirty and ugly. So instead of sandblasting, I'm going to be using my pressure washer. I'm going to pressure wash this piece, get as much of the dirt off of it as possible. And then what's next is I use something called Scotch-Brite and scuffing paste. Cerakote offers this scuffing paste, which basically it's like a gritty soap that helps remove grease and kind of scuffs the surface, hence scuffing paste, that allows Cerakote to stick to it better. This stuff's pretty dang good. The only downside to it is it does kind of take a little bit of manual labor. The key with Cerakote, or really any sort of painting, powder coating, or any other sort of coating, is the prep. Really the Cerakote or the paint itself doesn't take really long to do. It's the prep work, and that's the key to getting a good finish. The key is with the scuffing paste is basically you want to scuff it until you get all of the dirt, all of the grime and grease off of the part. And a good way to test that is whenever you run water on it after you have scuffed the entire piece, the water doesn't stick to it. If the water sticks to it and beads up and has trouble running off of it, that typically means that that area has not been prepped properly and you need to re-scuff and Scotch-Brite again until that water doesn't stick anymore. After that, it's pretty easy to actually spray the Cerakote. Now you are going to need a few things. One of the things you are going to need is some sort of Cerakote spray gun. This is one that Cerakote offers. I've been using this for quite a while. They offer starter kits, and in fact, I would recommend getting one of their starter kits. I'm going to be using C-Series colors. They're pretty dang easy to spray. The C-Series colors are all air cure colors, which basically means you don't need to bake it in an oven, which removes one of the steps that you need to worry about. So you can get a C-Series starter kit with 3 different colors from Cerakote. You get the spray gun that you need, and you're also going to need some mesh strainers. The color I'm going to be using is called Glacier Black, or it's the C7600 color. In case you guys want to go look it up, I'll link it down below for you guys to check that out. Their Glacier series colors actually promote heat transfer, so it actually helps remove heat out of the part, which is really good for keeping things cool, especially on engines, exhaust manifolds, anything like that. Not only that, it's a super high temperature rating. I think it's rated up to 1800 degrees, which if my engine gets that hot, I have more problems than my Cerakote coming off. But it's a great series coating. I've never had any issues with it. And it's chemical resistant and all the other typical resistances that you get from Cerakote. Now the key with spraying Cerakote when you actually come to spray it is you want to make sure that this is evenly mixed. You want to shake it for about 5 minutes. Make sure it's shaken up. You really don't need much, by the way. I have a really big bottle here. The reason why I got the big one is because of how much I spray Cerakote. If you're only doing a valve cover, or if you're only doing a couple of pieces, you can actually get the tester bottle. This is the size of the tester bottle. It is substantially smaller, and this will cover almost everything that you need to spray, especially if you're only doing 1 or 2 parts. Cerakote is a super thin coating, so it goes a really long ways whenever you are spraying it, so you don't need a big bottle like this unless you are doing 100 parts or something like that, or a bunch of really big parts. Even then, this is probably way overkill just because of how much actually is used in the Cerakote process. Now another thing you are going to need that I mentioned earlier is a mesh strainer. They sell some mesh strainers. These are reusable mesh strainers. Look at what type of mesh strainer the color you're using calls for. This one is the Glacier Black, and it calls for the number 100 mesh strainer, and that's what I got here. Along with that, you are going to need gloves, respirator, and eye protection because you do not want this getting in or on your body too much. And obviously you'll need some sort of air hookup or air compressor for the spray gun. The very last thing that you really need is acetone. Acetone helps prevent Cerakote from curing. Basically, that is going to make sure that after you are done spraying the color that you need, you can take that acetone and clean your gun. You need to clean it right after. You need to do it thoroughly because otherwise you are going to ruin your $100, $200 spray gun just because the Cerakote cured inside the gun and you really can't fix it after that. Okay, so it's been about 60 minutes or so since I Cerakoted the parts, and I want to show you what they look like. As you guys saw, when the Cerakote went on, it was glossy. This is actually not a glossy finish, this is a matte finish. So this is what the final product looks like after it's been drying for a little bit. Now, I will say, you can put a high gloss on this. Cerakote sells a clear coat, which I'm probably going to try on that part right there, but I've never done it before, so I don't know how it looks. They also sell high gloss colors, but I've never done those because typically those aren't in the air cure line. They're usually in the oven cure stuff, which I don't do as much just because I don't have an oven big enough to handle most of the parts that I do. Now, one of the things I do want to point out is, as you can see, there is some, like, it's not perfect. There's like these like wave-like patterns right there. And it's not perfect. And a lot of that comes down to prep. A lot of that scaling that I showed earlier, it is probably the result of that scaling and me not fully cleaning this part. But one of the reasons why I don't really care is because this valve cover is kind of a temporary valve cover for that car. I'm doing a different engine build, which means I just need this to look good for now until I can build my new engine. And it's kind of the same with this guy. The only difference is on this Datsun valve cover that I'm doing is I'm gonna try something different, and so I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in as a bonus now. Now, as you can see, I also did this Datsun valve cover and I sprayed it in black. However, really the only part that I wanted black was this Nissan overhead cam part and these two lines. In reality, I'm gonna try to paint red over this black color except for where the Nissan overhead cam part is. I've never done this before, so this is kind of an experiment for me, so you're gonna learn and see if this works just as much as I am. That's one of the reasons why I did this piece right here. This piece is actually trash. It's totally not important. But I wanted to do that piece so that I could try a couple of different things. One, I want to see how the red looks over the black before I end up doing it on the valve cover. And two, I want to see if I can use chapstick to mask off an area on this. Usually you use masking tape, but taping off this area here on the valve cover will prove to be very difficult. So if I can just use chapstick as like a buffer between the layer and then kind of wipe away the chapstick, it should hopefully look good. So we're gonna go ahead and test it on this piece, see how it looks, and I'll let you guys know what the final product looks like for this piece right there. Okay, so it has been about 10 minutes or so since I actually finished spraying the Cerakote. The red looks amazing so far. So far it looks like the chapstick's doing its job and it's protecting the areas that I hit with it. We'll see how that actually turns out in an hour or two, or whenever I deem it's safe to take off. That's probably the main thing, is I don't know exactly when I should take this off. I did spray this other piece over here red, and there's still some chapstick areas that I haven't taken off yet. So I'm gonna let that cure more, and I'll know that like that is about 30-40 minutes ahead of that piece, and so that will react in a way that I can gauge how to do that one. So overall, the red's looking really good. This is still gonna be a like semi-gloss. If I want to do a high gloss later, I can over top of the red to kind of really showcase it. But basically, it's gonna look very similar, or really exactly like this piece right here. Anyway, so far I'm happy with it. It's not perfect. I did mess up a little bit with the chapstick and the Cerakote, but this engine doesn't need to be perfect. It's already immensely better than what it was, and I know that this is going to look really, really good with that two-tone valve cover and the red and black. So I'm gonna check in with you guys once I finally decide that that is ready to go. As for the other valve cover, it looks pretty dang good as well. This one, again, not absolutely perfect, but we do have that beautiful black area. I did miss a couple little areas in the front there, down low, but that's okay. You're not gonna see them. Overall though, it's gonna do its job, it's gonna look good, and it's gonna protect it, and it's gonna look way better than that. So I'm gonna check in with you guys once I get that onto this car, and once that is done drying, to see what it looks like on that engine. Okay, so it has been almost 12 hours since I did the last coat on the valve covers, and I learned something. and I want to tell you guys about it. So here is the Datsun engine with the red valve cover, and as I was explaining, I put chapstick on top of this layer so that the red wouldn't adhere to it, and it kind of worked, to be honest. It wasn't the cleanest line. This is not my favorite aspect right here. And then also some of the areas just didn't come off, and when they did, they took the black with it that was underneath it. I think the reason for this is because I waited so long. Again, I did it this morning rather than last night. I think if I had waited an hour or two last night and then did it then it probably would have resulted in a better result with the chapstick method. However, because I waited so long, it ended up something like this, which it doesn't look horrible, to be honest. Like, if you look at it from over here, it actually looks pretty good. And if you don't even look at the letters on the top and you just look at the engine all said and done, it actually looks pretty dang good, and I'm pretty happy with the result. This isn't some show car, this isn't the SEMA car that we're working on, and the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to know what to do when I actually go do it on that car, so I do it right the first time. So for now, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it like this, even though it doesn't look incredible. I'll just say it was a stylistic choice. Eventually we will probably go do this valve cover. This is just a spare one that I have. We'll do this one and probably use the masking tape method, or just do the chapstick method again, just a little bit better, and see what results I can get from that. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the results so far. It's not perfect. None of these cars are perfect. That's why I'm making these YouTube videos. Is not only am I learning, I'm showing you guys what I'm learning so that you guys don't make the same mistakes. And I love hearing the tips and comments of you guys in the comments below. So if you guys have any ideas on how I can make this better, or if you guys have any advice, please let me know in the comments down below. Now, I know that wasn't the only valve cover that we did. We also did this one. This one actually turned out pretty dang perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this on the car right now. Overall, I pretty much nailed and mastered the one coat layer of Cerakote, like the one color layer of Cerakote. Whenever it comes to the two-tone stuff, I'm still working on how to do that properly, especially with different methods, different parts, and different pieces. So let's go ahead and get this other valve cover mounted up, see how it looks, and I will give you guys the final little cinematic of all of the work that we've done. All right, so it's the next day. Overall, the valve covers turned out pretty dang good. I'm really happy with the Goblin valve cover. It turned out really, really nice because it was the single color black. I'm happy with how most of the Cerakote turned out on the Datsun valve cover. The only thing that I would do differently is the lettering. The lettering was okay. Overall, I think I just waited too long to take the chapstick off. I waited till the next day. I should have done it within a couple of hours. So I have another valve cover, and I'll probably end up redoing this one as well eventually. But since it is for the 280, it's not that big of a deal. If you guys want to see more Cerakote projects, or if you want to see this engine be put into my Datsun right back there, that'll probably be in the next couple of videos. So be sure to subscribe, along with all of the other projects we got going on. It is total chaos, but I promise it's going to be so cool once we get them all done. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.